Well, we could not be at a better place to go racing. It is Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin and Road America. Hello everybody and welcome along to our live sound and vision coverage of the IMSA SportsCar Weekend, qualifying for IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. Wherever you are around the world, thank you very much indeed for being with us. And whatever you're doing this weekend, pause for a moment or two and put your full concentration into the sound or the vision or both that you are about to get from us here on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. Shea Adam is our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter, and she can give us the rundown of who will be qualifying in the GTD positional qualifying session after I tell you a little bit about where we are. Over a half a century, Road America has been challenging the world's best. Just over 4 miles around 14 corners, from the awesomely quick entry to turn 1, almost unbelievably slow, to the tricky downhill braking at turn 5. Then, of course, the entrance down Harry Downs into turn 8 and through the carousel. Then one of the fastest corners on a road circuit anywhere in North America through the kink, and subtly downhill to Canada Corner, from where it is all uphill to the start finish line. So don't run out of fuel there as you're coming through the last lap, because you are not going to get it home. Delighted to say that the weather is playing ball for us with a air temperature at the moment, don't you? Be a little black rain cloud. Air temperature of 24 Celsius, track temperature 29, or if you prefer that on the Fahrenheit scale, if you're listening to us on 87.9 FM or 454 our scanner frequency at the track, that would be 82 Fahrenheit on track and 75 Fahrenheit in the air, but an 83% humidity call at the moment, with the wind picking up, and that's 100% humidity in turn 5, because we're just hearing that down at turn 5 at the back of the pits and paddock area, Shea Adam, it is starting to rain.
It's raining in the pit lane. Thank you, Kelly Brule. It's raining in turn 5. Thank you to all my spies around the track. You know who you are. The ponchos have been put on because Mr. Pac-Man has arrived at the circuit, a big green blob that appears to be hovering over for about the next 3 hours worth of running, but it's still not wet right now. The big question is, what tires does everybody put on, though? As soon as the cars leave the pit lane, you may not do any further work to them, i.e. whatever tires you start on, those are the only ones you get to go out and qualify on. It's not a wet track yet per se, but it very quickly could become a wet track. So we're waiting to see if they're going to put the wet tires on or the slicks on. And right now, a lot of teams have both options on the pit lane, not on the pit wall, sitting next to the cars. It's going to be anyone's guess. Do you put in your fast lap right off the bat, or do you wait a bit and go out on the wets?
Yeah, and for safety reasons, there could be a dispensation, couldn't there? Because obviously if it rained in the middle of the session, you're not going to send people out on slicks if they've already got slicks on.
It's not a dispensation. It's a park your car and don't risk it. It's a what decision did you go with? That's the one that you have to live with. There is no changing of tires. There's no touching the car for any sort of work during qualifying. And qualifying alone, I should say, you lose all of your times if a crew member touches the car. So it's not a dispensation for safety thing. It's a stick by your guns for what decision you've made.
Okay. However, you can't put wet weather tyres on unless the session is declared wet, Shea. So the only choice you have, if it's a dry session, is dry tyres. And then if it pours down in the middle, you've got to just struggle back to the pit lane, whether or not you put a lap in. So that would just...
That is correct.
But then you would void the session and nobody would get a time. So that
is correct.
Well, that's a ridiculous set of circumstances. You would have to be given a dispensation to put wet tyres on.
It is, and it's also worth noting that if we do not have 10 minutes worth of green flag running in this session, it's all null and void, and the grid will be set by championship points anyway, but the green flag is out. Drivers have been cleared of the pit lane. Would you like to know who they are?
Just in a second, Jeremy Shaw joins us in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Jeremy, your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it's dry right now, so it'll be declared a dry session. So, as you say, yeah, if there is heavy rain, within the next probably 5 minutes, because it's going to take that long to do a couple of laps around here, it wouldn't surprise me if race control kind of put out a red flag and said, okay,
Correct.
you can change tyres.
Yeah.
Common sense comes into play here, and as we've seen in the past, race control has plenty of common sense.
Yeah, that is very true, Jeremy. Very, very true. Shea, tell me who is qualifying for GTD grid position, because we'll have a points qualifying session after this. Who is qualifying for the 15, and there are only 15 cars here, 15 GT Daytonas?
Let's start with the car that already got a pole position earlier on today, Turner Motorsport BMW. They start out front for the GS category in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Robbie Foley is going to try and make it 2 pole positions on the day for Turner Motorsport in the 96 BMW. It's Rob Ferriel in the 88 Team Hardpoint Porsche, Jeff Kingsley, who had a spin earlier on in the second practice session for Acura, representing Compass, Till Bechtelsheimer representing Acura again, but this time for Gradient Racing, and John Potter in for the Magnus with Archangel Racing Acura. Don Yount is qualifying the Audi that we welcome back, NTE Sport, once again, the number 42. It's Richard Heistand in the number 39 Audi, that is Carbon. 32 Mercedes, the only Mercedes in the field this weekend, Shane Lewis, and man, he's nifty in the rain, so keep an eye on that car if it does start downpouring. The number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin, no surprises there. It's Roman DeAngelis, championship leader. Misha Goikberg is in the number 19 GRT Lamborghini. It is Trent Hinman for Wright Motorsport in the number 16 Porsche, with drops of rain falling all over his windshield now. Aaron Telitz and Frankie Montecalvo are the 2 Lexus qualifiers in the 14 and 12 respectively. Zach Robichon out first for Pfaff Motorsport in their Porsche, and Madison Snow is in the Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini.
Get a lap in quickly, guys. You're really going to have to go well. Good news for Till Bechtelsheimer. He splashed and plodged his way through all kinds of bad weather at Silverstone in the Classic last weekend, in a Tolbull Largo, in an Allard, and in a very lovely Chevron B8, which he was kind enough to allow me a shot at as well. And we finished the race, and we weren't last, and we didn't get lapped by Alex Brundle in the T70, which, given that Till had the performance deficit of allowing me to drive his car, was something of a miracle, to be honest. And got to say thank you to George and Biscuit and the rest of the guys from RW Motorsport for putting that together for us. Looking very slippery down at turn 5, Jeremy, as 1 or 2 people just sliding the cars around, including Madison Snow, who is clearly feeling very confident with the Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini Huracan, and is pushing on very nicely down towards turn 8 through Harry Downs and on towards the carousel. This might be get a lap in quickly and then sit with a smoke look on your face, to be honest.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and whoever can lay down this first lap is going to be golden out there. It's really interesting right now, because it's certainly, I think, there are certainly spots of rain out there, and the skies are closing a little bit, but it's okay for right now. We're showing some times on the board, but that would have been the out lap, wouldn't it? I'm not quite sure how times are showing up.
I haven't got a time yet.
Yeah, no. Roman DeAngelis at 2:24.0.
Depends where you are in the pit lane, Jeremy, doesn't it? Because if you're behind the timing line, you're going to trip the timing line in the pit lane. Whereas if you're on the other side of it...
Are we not using the timing line down at turn 14?
No. Start-finish line.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
You're thinking IndyCar, aren't you? I know you.
Well,
I actually like that rule.
Have we not done that in the past year?
Don't think so. I stand to be corrected, and if anybody from IMSA wants to tweet us at IMSA Radio and let us know, or send a text to Jeremy or Shea, our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter, Jeremy, John Hindhoff in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Nobody with the windscreen wipers on as yet, and the Michelin tyres coming up to temp and pressure the psychological rain. I think it's a bit more than that at turn 5 where it was first sprinkling. I think there is a bit of a compromise to the track grip levels at 5 and probably 6 and 7 as well. But warm tyres, Jeremy, it's not lying on the top, and it might be a bit greasy, but hot, slick tyres can deal with a little bit of wet.
They can, and the drivers here, they've worked really hard to get temperature into the tyres on their out lap. First flying laps completed. Now Aaron Thielitz 208.240, Robbie Foley in 208.333 in the Turner Motorsport BMW. The second of the Vassar Sullivan Lexus is in third position, so first and third for Lexus, Thielitz, Foley and Monte Carlo.
So we've got Lexus, BMW, Lexus, Porsche, Aston Martin, Porsche, Acura, Lamborghini, Mercedes and Porsche for your top 10. 8.5 minutes to go, so coming down to about half distance. 87.9 FM and 454 a scanner frequency around the track. RS2, IMSA Radio via imsaradio.com and the player, and we've got sound and vision there on the live video button at imsaradio.com. That's your home for everything IMSA. All of our archive on there, download or listen on demand. It's all available, all free, no blocks or breaks. And for the race on Sunday for WeatherTech SportsCar Championship here at Road America, XM202 if you are so equipped, and I know our AMR safety teams like to tune in on XM and get the crystal clear satellite reception, so it is XM202 for full flag-to-flag uninterrupted coverage. Looking a little more sketchy out on the run down from turn 3 through the kink at 4 and down to 5, but still nobody has put the windscreen wipers on. A bit of a lock up and a slide from the back end of the number 14 Lexus from Vassar Sullivan. Aaron Thielitz though keeping it pointing in the right direction. These cars are equipped with quite sophisticated racing versions of anti-lock braking system, and they've got traction control as well, and it'll be a balancing act between all the settings here. Turn up the traction control too far and the car doesn't accelerate off the corners. The sensors dull the acceleration potential. Turn it down too far and the car moves around maybe too much, and you don't get the forward progress from the middle of the corner off. First time I've seen the windscreen wiper good, and that was on the 16 Wright Motorsport Porsche of Trent Hinman. Now Trent's an experienced driver, he wouldn't do that unless he really needed to. All the preparations on the windscreen to bead the water off. 6.5 minutes to go. We're coming down to that magic 10 minutes of green flag racing, and more than halfway through the session, Jeremy. Still Aaron Thielitz on top for Vassar Sullivan.
Yeah, and the car is chasing. That's Trent Hinman in the Wright Motorsports Porsche, as you say. He is currently second in the timing charts as well in the number 16 Porsche. Robbie Foley, who had briefly gone to the top last time around, into third position now. Can he improve again as he comes across the line to keep it all up? We're still seeing some good lap times, particularly through the first sector. There were improvements. Other improvements as they come across the line. Aaron Thielitz comes into the pits. Trent Hinman does not improve. A 2 minutes 10 last time for Trent Hinman. He stayed out. Aaron Thielitz bailed out into the pit lane. Ahead of them on the racetrack was Robbie Foley. He also quite a bit slower than the previous lap.
Lots of people heading to the pit lane with the rain beginning to fall slightly more heavily. In 30 seconds, we will have had the 10 minutes of green flag racing that will make this a live session. Cars coming in can't be touched by their team. They literally have to sit there. 17 seconds still to go as another car heads into the pit lane. That's the Mercedes number 32, the AMG GT3, the Gilbert Korthoff Motorsports grey machine. Weather picking up, wind picking up. That normally means that there's rain on the way. 96 Turner Motorsport BMW, Robbie Foley still out there. He's only a 1/10 of a second away from the front row at the moment. And Trent Hinman half a second away from pole position. Where's Hinman on the circuit? He's in the pit, Thielitz is in the pit lane, so it's the 16 car. He's just coming through to the kink now, Trent Hinman. He's got Robbie Foley out there as well at the moment in the weather. It's too much, I think. But we've gone over the 10 minutes, so this, Jeremy, is a live session. So right now, provisional pole, Aaron Thielitz, and this is a live session. The times would stand even if there was a red flag right now.
But John,
yes,
track
indeed.
limits are being called.
For whom?
For both Foley and for Aaron Thielitz. I'm not sure if it was Aaron's fast lap or Robbie's fast lap. Lap 4 for both of them. Track 1 turn limits.
Turn 1 track limits. Okay.
4, I don't think it was their best lap. I think it was lap 3 they set their best
agree.
times on.
Yeah.
So
they're on lap 4 now, aren't they?
Yeah, that was when it was beginning to rain a little bit more on the 4th lap. So that would probably explain why they slid wide. And here is Trent Hinman bringing that number 16 right motorsports Porsche into the pit lane now. Clearly far too wet for any sort of improvements right now.
I did, having got back into the habit of reading driver briefings, which all tend to be done electronically nowadays. I did read the driver briefing notes, and the race control are very specific about track limits here, particularly at turn 1. On the outside of turn 1, there is a little bit of curb. It looks the same as track, but it's got marks on it. And at the edge of that, there's just plain tarmac. 2 Michelin tyres have to be on that curbing. You can't have all 4 beyond the wrong side, the left-hand side of that curbing. That is track limits, and that will see your lap deleted and have you called for track limits if you're a persistent offender during the race. Aaron Thielitz, I think, Jeremy, thinks he's done enough, and I'd be hard to argue with him with the weather as it is at the moment. He's out the car now, so that's it. He shouldn't have got out the car, should he?
He should not have gotten out of the car. Yeah, that could result in him losing his lap time.
Well, he's got to, well, the team are talking to him, but he's got to get back in that car and drive it down to the end of the pit lane.
No, because they have the pros qualifying next. But
right,
technically, he's supposed to stay in the car until the checkered flag.
End of the session. Right, yeah, absolutely right. So that is the positional session that we have, which sees the number 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus RCF GT3 on pole by half a second from Trent Hinman for the Wright Motorsports Porsche, the blue and black number 16. And Turner Motorsports, the blue and yellow BMW, just 0.091 of a second away in third. Top 4 made up by Zachary Robichon, another Porsche, with the Pfaff Motorsports, the plaid number 9 Porsche, another 0.2 further back. Top 4, Jeremy, separated by 1 second.
Indeed so, and that was a really good lap once again for Aaron Thielitz there in car number 14. It's his just his second pole of this season, but his 5th overall. And it'll be Jack Hawkesworth who will take over that car for the second session. And I think as long as nobody else touches the car, I don't think he'll get penalised for getting out of it.
It would seem
right
harsh,
now.
In fairness, yes.
It certainly would. I mean, but if anybody else touches the car for any reason at all, then that would be certainly a legitimate penalty. So they've got to have their wits about them there. Hopefully, just for getting out of it won't cause a problem.
Yeah, the session is still live right now for 40 seconds. So nobody can touch any of the cars on pit lane. Of course, at the end of that session, we then have a short break between the next one. And those guys are going to have to go to work at that point. The Parc Fermé situation is lifted, and they will go to work, presumably to put some wet tyres on. Rule 40.2.9, Shea says what?
It says touching the car is prohibited once it has left its pit box during a qualifying segment until instructed by IMSA officials. Driver must remain in the car until the car arrives at impound, except GTD following the first qualifying segment. A competitor may request permission from IMSA to address various other things. And then it says the pole-winning driver in each class, this is Rule F, by the way, may be directed to participate in the interviews and or a pole ceremony award as directed by IMSA officials. And in such the case, the driver may be directed to exit the car. I did not see an IMSA official direct Aaron Telitz to get out of the car.
Well, we'll leave that to those who have to make those decisions. There is another session to come. The checkered flag is now out, and Trent Hinman waited and got out of his Porsche, and that's what all the other drivers have done. So that would suggest Turner Motorsport, checkered flag is out, so they can have somebody come across and even help the driver out. Robbie Foley gets out, Bill Oberlin is getting in. But that was at the conclusion of the session by the checkered flag. So there's some discussion, I would think, being going on between the teams here, as well as between ourselves. It's not for us to call the penalties, of course, and we're not suggesting that at all. But I would say nobody else got out of the cars. So let's see.
John.
Sorry?
One other driver did. Roman DeAngelis also got out of the Aston Martin before the session was over. Everyone else stayed in their cars.
Okay, thank you, Shea. Eyes and ears in the pit lane and paddock for VP Racing Fuel report. It is now raining. Now, with that session now being over, Jeremy, of course, they can work on the cars, and indeed this will be declared, one presumes, a wet session for the points here, and therefore a set of grooved Michelin tyres, racing tyres, will go on all of the cars.
Well, yeah. How wet is it?
Oh, Jeremy. Well, you're a brave man.
It certainly isn't. It's not raining hard, but certainly wet tyres going on to the harder racing Aston Martin there. But it's not raining hard. I don't think at the moment, but it would certainly be a handful around here. Oh, it's certainly raining pretty steadily there, isn't it? So good, because that would make things really, really tricky out there if you had to make the choice and go on slick tyres in these conditions. There would be cold slicks, and I think that would be awfully dicey. So
I agree.
But if it isn't full wet, it's certainly going to chew up wet weather tyres pretty darn quickly.
This is for points. I think if this was for position, you might get one or two people, if the rain was stopping, just staying in the pit lane till the last 5 or 7 minutes, and then coming out with slicks on. Once you've chosen, you have to stick with it though. Once the green flag comes out. So 15 cars have qualified for their starting positions for tomorrow's IMSA SportsCar Weekend main event, which is the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. Those 15 now go for GTD qualifying points, to be joined, Shea Adam, by 3 GT Le Mans cars. Now, we know that the other drivers that you didn't mention before for GTD, i.e. the pros, are going to be out there. GT Le Mans is a pro class, although there are some non-pro drivers in it who are qualifying for the 3 and the 4 Corvette and the 79 WeatherTech Porsche.
For the WeatherTech Porsche, my intel says it will be none other than the hometown hero Cooper McNeil trying to qualify the Porsche as best he can with both of his puppies at the track this weekend. A little bit exciting to have the Golden Retrievers there. In Corvette world, the number 3 Corvette will be Jordan Taylor, and the number 4 Corvette, that's the silver one, who's really good in the rain? That would be Nick Tandy.
Oh, right. That makes sense. That does make sense. New car, new chassis for the number 4 Chevy Corvette, the C8R that it is replacing here, will, in fact, it's probably already on its way to central France, north central France, I suppose you could say. Circuit de la Sarthe, Le Mans, for the Grand Prix d'Endurance, which is a couple of weeks away. Next weekend, a week on Sunday, a week tomorrow, is the test day. I'm told that this chassis that is here, the new chassis that is here, will become the spare chassis for Le Mans. And therefore, at the end of this race weekend, that will be transported to France. Hopefully not to be used, because it would only be used if there was a problem. So keep our fingers crossed for that. And a reminder that you will be able to hear live and exclusive coverage of Le Mans Test Day in its entirety. That's not tomorrow, but a week tomorrow, Sunday the 15th of August. That'll be over on RS1 Haggerty Radio Le Mans for 2021 via radiolemans.com. You can get us on there with some very familiar voices. Sunday the 15th we'll start. We've got some special programming from there right through race week, including, and the only broadcaster that can say this, the only live, free, global coverage of every single session for the 24-hour race, including FP1, which no one else is covering. So test day, FP, all the FP sessions, qualifying, hyperpole, and then of course the whole race live. Oh, and warm up on Saturday morning as well, of course. Plus some of the support races as well on Saturday morning. We'll bring you the most coverage of anyone from the 2021 Le Mans 24 Hours, and plenty of IMSA interest there, both in teams and drivers. So RS1 on radiolemans.com. It's all live, it's all free, and we'll keep you up to date. So, Shea, you gave us the qualifiers for GT Le Mans. Put everybody's minds at rest, would you please, for the GTD. The remaining drivers will be the pro-rated drivers in that category. So that leaves whom?
Okay, well, I went back to front last time, so should I do front to back this time? Why not? Brian Sellers is in the #1 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini. Lawrence Vantour, fastest GT car in the wet yesterday, yes, including the GTLMs, is going back out for Pfaff Motorsport in their Porsche. For the two Lexuses, we've got Zach Veach in the #12 and Jack Hawksworth in the 14 Lexus. Jack, who holds the track record for fastest race lap around here. That would be one Mr. Patrick Long in the #16 Wright Motorsport Porsche. Happy belated birthday, Patrick. I'll keep saying that all weekend, and then we'll push it aside. Frank Pereira will be driving the #19 Grasser Racing Lamborghini. It's Ross Gunn, the one and only man with the bright yellow helmet, in the #23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. Guy Cosmo, very good around here in the rain, is in the #32 Mercedes for Gilbert Hawthorne. It is Jeff Westphal in the #39 Carbon Racing Audi. Welcome to IMSA qualifying to J.R. Hildebrand in the #42 NTE Motorsport Audi. We've got Andy Lally in the 44 Magnus Acura. The other two Acuras have Mark Miller in the 66 for Gradient and Super Mario Farnbacher in the 76 for Compass Racing. Mario, who came so close to winning the race here last year in the rain. He was about a third of the track away from victory when he had a brief off moment at the kink and actually managed to drive the car back to second place. Not many people can say that when they go off at the kink. In the 88, it is Catherine Legg, my girl, out there for Hardpoint EBM. And then it is the one, the only magician, Bill Oberlin for Turner Motorsport BMW.
Still more than the odd splash of rain around the circuit, but you do get the feeling just by looking at the body language of the pit crews, Jeremy, up and down this IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship pit lane, that there is some discussion about what tyres to put on before this session goes green. I think if you had tyre warmers, which we don't in IMSA, and we can discuss that another time, but there aren't tyre warmers, you might risk a set of really hot wets. But I think with the cold tyres, that would be difficult at the very least, not to say disastrous, if you couldn't get the heat into them on the opening 2 or 3 laps.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the track limits being an issue here, and you're getting penalties potentially for overstepping the limits in turn 1. But more problematic for the drivers is the fact that track limits are pretty much determined by grass and then walls on most of this track, and you don't want to be off on there, particularly with the race and the main part of the championship points, of course, coming tomorrow.
87.9 FM and 454 even for your scanner frequency, as well as around the track, as well as around the world on IMSA Radio. That's RS2 at imsaradio.com. We've got sound and vision on the live video button, also on imsaradio.com and at imsa.tv. We're just about 30 seconds away from a green flag for the points paying part of the GT Daytona qualifying. Same format, 15 minutes, and also setting the grid on the GTLM part of qualifying. Jeremy Shaw.
Yeah, and just with points being awarded this season, as you say, we've got a new point scoring system as the green flag flies and out the cars go on what is now decidedly damp track. Just seeing who the most points scored in GTD so far this season, by quite a good margin actually, is well, Jack Hawksworth, because he's done the qualifying points sessions in number 14 Lexus. He's made 159 points. The next closest in GTD is 139 for Patrick Long in the Porsche for Wright Motorsports car number 16. Then 1 point behind him is Bill Oberlin in the Tony Motorsport BMW. That's just taking into account simply the qualifying points in each of the 1, 2, 3. We've only had 4 previous races in GTD for the overall championship this season. This is round number 5 for GTD. Boy, it's slippery down there at turn 5. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be on dry tyres right now, that's for sure.
No, indeed. This will be one and done, by the way, for these qualifying for points this year. Next year, just one session in GTD for points and position, but I wonder if we will have 2 qualifying sessions, one for GTD Pro and one for GTD. A new category next year with the demise of GTLM. The factory teams being encouraged to enter all pro lineups for GTD Pro, yet to entirely work out whether the cars will be slightly different or whether there'll be different base weights for the cars. Shea Adam, our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock and Rules reporter. A couple of drivers got out of the car before the end of that session. Give us the update on what's been said from race control on the rules and regulations.
Whenever in doubt, contact the brilliant Johnny Knotts. And Johnny, I wish I was out there with you right now. Even though it is raining, they changed it after Belle Isle. The first session driver is allowed to get out of the car when they come back to the pit lane. Every subsequent session is not allowed. So it is just for the GTD position qualifying session to try and give the drivers a bit of extra time to change over to the next driver. Now, they do have 15 minutes in between the sessions, so they have enough time as is. But ever since Detroit, that has been allowed.
Right, okay. There you go then.
As we talked about earlier on, is to make sure nobody else
Correct.
on the team touched the car as well. So there's kind of 2 points to that rule. But yeah, nice work, Chase. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, very good indeed. We have seen people, Jeremy, lose their qualifying for just a team member bleeding a bit of air out, or indeed opening the door for the driver to try and give him some air.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, the rules are pretty clear there, and yeah, something you've got to pay attention to. By the way, this is as well as being round 6 of the overall season-long championship for GTD. This is also round 5 of the WeatherTech Sprint Cup, and 2 of the races so far have not been full season points scoring events. So just taking into account the qualifying points in the 4 Sprint Cup races have been held so far in GTD. It's actually Mario Farnbacher who scored more points than anybody else in GT. He's got 123 points out of qualifying so far. That is against the 109 of Frankie Montecalvo, 106 for Bill Oberlin, 104 for Ross Gunn. Where's Jack Hawksworth, you ask? Well, they didn't qualify in the race at Detroit. I can't remember why now. Was that?
Broken toe link.
Went in the wall.
Went in the wall. Very well.
So he's only scored 96 points because he's one round down in terms of scoring points in the Sprint Cup series. So he's had two maximum scores in qualifying for GTD, but with the DNF, so to speak, or DNS Detroit, he's only scored in 3 of the 4 rounds.
So let's just go back a moment or two before we start getting some lap times in here with the cars coming round. So in pole position for GT Daytona will be the number 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus, alongside the Wright Motorsports number 16 Porsche. On row 2, Pfaff, check that, Turner Motorsport in 3rd place, and the number 9 Pfaff Motorsports Porsche. 14, 16, 96 and 9. And then on the 3rd row, the 5 Car Bournemouth Peregrine Audi, the 39 in 5th position. Then the 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin, and the top 10 made up by the number 12 Vassar Sullivan Lexus, the number 1 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini, they'll be on row 4, and on row 5, Compass Racing's McLaren number 76, and in 10th position the one and only AMG GT3, the Gilbert Korthoff Motorsports number 32 machine. That's your top 10, and to finish it off, row 6 is the Team Hardpoint EBM number 88 Porsche, the Gradient Racing number 66 NSX, ahead of the Grasser Racing number 19 in 13th position, Magnus with Archangel in the 44 car 14th, and NTE Sport Audi in 15th position. So that's how they will line up. That's the GTD position results, subject to post qualifying tech, of course. Now we are out there with the pro drivers, or with the better rated drivers at the least, to say, and they are looking for points, and points make prizes and positions this year, because yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
With the first flying lap completed by all of the cars, the fastest overall, as Shay pointed out from yesterday in the wet session, Lawrence Van Toor in the Pfaff Motorsports GTD Porsche was quicker than both of the Corvettes on that first lap. So a brilliant effort by Lawrence.
Does have the advantage of ABS, which the GT Le Mans cars don't have, and Jordan Taylor, stung by that potential bragging rights for the GT3 car, takes Corvette number 3 back to the top with a 2:20.9. The other thing I would say about that, Jeremy, we know, don't we, that the GT Le Mans cars generally do take, even in dry conditions, and it will be no difference in the wet, they take a little longer to get the Michelin tyres up to temperature and pressure.
Yeah, true. But that was certainly a great lap from Lawrence Van Toor. Even the next lap, he's only been beaten by Jordan Taylor. He's quicker than Nick Tandy. So Taylor has the overall quote-unquote fastest time in this session with a 2 minutes 20.9. Again, putting things into perspective, the fastest time in practice, which was this morning, was a 2 minutes 1.8 for that was Danny Campbell this morning.
I think Tandy had an issue in the middle sector last time around, because he was a good 5-6 seconds off everybody else's pace there at a 1:27. That's that long second sector. So keep an eye open for the number 4 car trying to come back. The number 3, the bright yellow car, is just coming out of the carousel at the moment. Guy Cosmo, I think, has already called it a day and thought that there's not much point in circulating here. This is about points, not about the position. Those are set, and nothing that happens here can change it. But these points in a tight championship battle all this year, if you've done well in qualifying this year, that could slightly mitigate a place or 2 finish, Jeremy, in the overall standings.
Yeah, very definitely. You know, the fact that Aaron Telitz and Jack Hawksworth have scored a lot of points. They've scored 60 more points than the car behind them in the championship, which is actually Catherine Legg, and there are actually a bit more than that behind them. So it really doesn't make it hasn't made any appreciable differences in the overall standings, but it's certainly interesting at this stage. And with Guy Cosmo and the Gilbert Korthoff Motorsports team, this is just their second race of the season, so championship points not at all relevant to them. And Shane Lewis qualified the car pretty respectably in the first session, so you had no point in risking any damage there.
Absolutely.
For Guy Cosmo. They made their debut in the sprint race at Watkins Glen. Didn't take part in the last round at Lime Rock just because they wanted to be better prepared coming here. The car for that debut race at Watkins Glen was pretty much as it rolled out of the container, a brand new car. They'd done no testing, no nothing. They just rolled up to the racetrack and had a really good run, actually finished in 7th position. Since then, they've had 4 days of testing right here at Road America and come in a lot better prepared for this second entry for that Gilbert Courthoff Motorsports Mercedes car number 32.
But as you say, Jeremy, we've got a 2-hour and 40-minute race tomorrow. Whether they start, whether they get the points or not get the points makes no difference at all. Their start position is locked in. So once again, whatever you're seeing on your timing screens now, this is for points paying positions. This is not at all for the grid that's already set. Spin for the 44 Magnus NSX in the Speed Racer colours down at turn 5. Just locked up on the way in and did a little 360, a little bit more than that. And that was as I say, the 44 car going around. Andy Lally spins. Just making a note of that on my wall planner there, Shay, because I'm not sure I've said that before. He lost it quite early in the piece onto the grass, but didn't hit anything. I love walking Andy up. So he's explored. I wonder if he's doing it the Gilles Villeneuve way, Jeremy, and going over the limit, and then he'll back it off a bit from there, will he? Next time.
That's right. Yeah, could be. Yeah. Gilles Villeneuve's debut at Formula One debut at Silverstone, spun on every corner during the practice sessions, but he didn't hit anything. Boy, was he fast! But Andy Lally,
only once at each corner.
Well, more than once each corner, that's right, at least once at each corner. But Andy Lally, 5th fastest in that Magnus with Archangel Acura, and that's a really good effort. They've been really struggling with that car, just not getting it particularly comfortable, and it's been a long time since Andy Lally was on the top step of the podium, 45 races in fact, all the way back to 2017 at Watkins Glen was his last win.
Wow.
But and of course this Magnus with Archangel team, they're not doing all of the GTD races this season. They're just doing a full season championship, so they didn't take part in the 2 Sprint Cup only races. Even so, Andy Lally still has more starts in the overall championship than anybody else, 82 starts to his name, and Andy Lally remains the only driver to have competed in every single GTD championship round since the beginning of the series in 2014. But he's now been closed up in the overall starts category with a couple of guys now hot on his heels. Bill Oblin and Antonio Garcia, they've made 81 starts in total each.
Big news at the top of the timings. Lawrence Vanto's dropped back to 3rd as Nick Tandy elbows through in the Corvette, figuratively speaking, of course. So it's Corvette 3 from Corvette 4, 6/10, call it 7/10 of a second between them. 2:21.6 for Tandy against a 2:20.9 for his teammate Jordan Taylor. Vanto a very creditable 2:22.0. He is still out there, but a slowish lap time last time around, and maybe looking for a bit of a gap, or maybe he's just decided it's a little bit too wet. Good first sector from Bill Oberlin, just 2/10 away from the overall best from anybody. Oberlin, it doesn't matter what classic car Bill Oberlin's in, he just looks at the times ahead of him and goes for it. With a little bit of a whoopsie in turn 5 again, this time from the Bass Sullivan 14 Lexus. That was Jack Hawksworth making a little drop, but barely. I mean, he just ran on, brought it back, didn't even spin the car. That was smart, didn't risk sticking it in the gravel or in the wall there. Just opened his hands out. There's room to drive straight on there, Jeremy. In fact, that is an option, isn't it? There is a track configuration here that uses that in the opposite direction. You can come back that way, and it sort of runs around the back of the pits and then back up the hill to what we would call turn 6.
True. Yeah. You can run that half, or you can also run the other half.
Yes, that's right. I suppose you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but you're right, and It's interesting, isn't it, that Jack Hawksley is only 10th in this session, and he has scored the maximum points in qualifying 4 times already this season. So he's really struggling in the wet conditions. Hasn't set a time that he'll be happy with at all.
One thing I would say is, yes, they've bolted on some wet tyres as Lawrence Vantour gets very close to Corvettes with a 2:21.8 and the fastest time for Pfaff Motorsport in the Porsche. Check flag is out, by the way. Nick Tandy has seen it. One thing I would say, you've bolted the Michelin wets on, but the car is still on dry settings, Jeremy, so it's still very stiff. It's not as compliant as it would be if you were on wet settings. You would slacken everything off, particularly the front rear anti-roll bars, just to let the car grip a little bit more. And yeah, all right, you've got much more grip from the tyres, but you're not working those tyres the way you'd really want to.
True, and and particularly just having the grid positions session right before this, there wouldn't have been time to do much in the way of changes to that car. If it had just had the one session, they could have perhaps better prepared for it. But the rain came so late, as you say, John. All these guys pretty much running, I'm sure, on dry weather tyres. It's certainly interesting to me to see Jack Hawkes was really struggling in these conditions, whereas normally that Lexus is super fast. Of course, Aaron Telitz with that same car just put it on yet another pole position just 20 minutes ago.
I suspect understeer would not have been his friend. The front ends tend to be the issue when you bolt a set of wet weather tyres, which raise the ride height a wee bit as well, because they are a slightly higher sidewall profile. That's deliberate in case there is standing water, but it's not the optimum setup. You would like to have slackened the front end off. I suspect that getting a bit of push, a bit of understeer there, bolting the tyres on, might even be a bit narrower as well, those tyres. But as I say, the car optimised for slicks and not for the wet weather tyres that they're using. Although, of course, the wet weather tyres are extremely efficient in shifting water with those sipes, the grooves, shifting about a bathful of water every half a second or thereabouts if required. Very impressive technology. So in GT Le Mans, it is the two Corvettes. They were setting their grid positions there. So it will be Corvette number 3 from Corvette number 4 from Cooper McNeil's WeatherTech Racing Porsche, the number 79. All of the other times we've mentioned are for points paying positions only. So Lawrence Vantour claims the top qualifying points for Porsche and for Pfaff. Bill Oberlin, second in terms of points for Turner Motorsport. Brian Sellers, third for Lamborghini and Paul Miller Racing. Frank Pereira for GRT Grasser Racing and the Lamborghini and the number 19 car in fourth. Fifth, Ross Gunn for Heart of Racing Team. They'll take the fifth place points for GT3, and the top six made up by Andy Lally with a really good run in the Magnus with Archangel Acura NSX GT3. They'll get sixth placed points. But just a reminder from earlier on, the positions are as follows. Pole in GTD, 14 Vassar Sullivan. Alongside them, 16 Wright Motorsports Porsche. 96 Turner Motorsport on the inside of row 2 with Pfaff Motorsports number 9 Porsche for company. Row 3, Carbon by Peregrine Audi, the number 39 in 5th, and in 6th, the 23 Heart of Racing Team. So those were the qualifying positions set in the previous session. And fair play to IMSA and Alcamel for getting those up quick enough that I could pull them up on another screen here to be able to do that, because I always forget to write those first ones down in the 15 minutes between the sessions before the screen clears. But they're already posted on the IMSA timing results site. Now, they are subject, of course, to post-qualifying tech, so they are unofficial, but that's the times as they were set. So we move on now to prototypes. Wet weather tyres being readied on the pit wall. Shea Adam, who are we going to see next in terms of drivers, please?
Well, in this category, in the LMP3, you may qualify a bronze or a silver driver under the age of 30. So from process of elimination for car number 30, Junior 3 Racing, that would have to be Terry Olson. He is the bronze in that car, and Mike Skeen just a tick over 30, so he's not eligible for that. In the Andretti Autosport Ligier, they have their choice. They could do either Jarrett Andretti, who has been the qualifying driver for each of the 3 previous races that car has contested, but Oliver Askew has been the fastest LMP3 driver so far this weekend. They might want to throw a blinder and throw him in just to get those extra qualifying points. Performance Tech, again, another team with the option, but they should be putting in Dan Goldberg for qualifying duties, as he has done in every race he's contested this year. I want to say where it's just been him and Rasmus Lind, who also can do qualifying because he's under 30. But again, I think there would lean towards Goldberg, and I believe that is Dan's helmet getting aboard the number 38. For 54, it is John Bennett of Core Autosport going out for qualifying. The 61, the Volvo Racing Ligier that we saw earlier on in practice 2, have an accident. If that car does make it onto the pit lane for qualifying, it would have to be Augie Paffs doing the qualifying because he is the bronze driver. In the 74 Riley Motorsport, well, for Riley Motorsport in their camp, Gar Robinson is the only eligible driver in that 74 machine. That's the orange and blue one. And Jim Cox is the driver who should be out in qualifying for the number 91.
Thank you, Shea. And as Shea was running down that as our VP Racing Field Pit and Paddock reporter, points and position in a single session here, so very much more straightforward. 7 cars to go out. Drivers installing themselves if they didn't bring the cars around, and they'll be making sure they dry off the bottom of their driving boots so as to get good contact on the pedals. The Core Autosport machine just getting the centre lock wheel nuts, lug nuts, single lug nut torqued up there, making sure everything's all right. Here comes the Mazda up the hill to the pit road. There's not much of this pit road, Jeremy, that is actually on the level. If you got the Spirit level out, put it in these pit boxes, I think there's probably only 2 or 3 right in the middle that either aren't on the upslope or on the slight downslope towards pit exit. Always gives the teams a little bit of a tough
maybe
go.
Slightly downhill towards the exit. It's pretty flat. Yeah, most of it's the last half of it is all pretty flat. Maybe fractionally downhill towards the end of it, but not significant. That's for sure. Just looking at the points tallies in LMP3 coming into this weekend, and it's actually Oliver Askew who has scored more points than anybody else in that class coming into this round, and he scored 124 points. Excuse me, 124 points. To that, and even though he hasn't qualified the car in most of the races, Rasmus Lind has 123, and John Bennett, who has qualified each time, is 122. So very interesting, isn't it? Just a point each, separating each of those 3 drivers in terms of the amount of points they've been allocated from the qualifying sessions.
Shea, we welcome to the main event, although they have been racing in the IMSA prototype challenge with their Ligier GSP 320. Junior 3 Racing, the number 30 car. What news of them in this VP Racing Pit and Paddock report?
Well, the reason that Terry Olson is the qualifying driver for this car is because Mike Skeen has been otherwise busy, let's say, and about 3 minutes ago, he won the Trans Am race in Nashville. So Mike Skeen not even at the racetrack yet. Kind of cool for him to start to the weekend. I knew that he was going to be flying into the track after the Trans Am race, but even more sweet that he was able to get a big trophy from Tennessee.
Yeah, I think I'd far rather be in a Trans Am car than an Indy car around there, given what we saw in the practice sessions yesterday between our sessions here. Got to catch up on the rest of that. You can catch up with that with our colleagues at NBCSN. Big afternoon tomorrow, NASCAR, then it is IndyCar, and then it is IMSA on NBCSN right through the afternoon. The IMSA race on a slight tape delay. That will be 8 o'clock Eastern tomorrow evening, with Brian Till among the voices of that, with Lee Diffie finishing off his Olympic duties, and Kevin Lee doing the IndyCar, filling in for Lee. So it'll be Brian Till who looks after the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship race. Was Joey Hand not in that race as well, that Trans Am race as well, Shea?
He was making his Trans Am debut, kind of cool, but unfortunately had a mechanical DNF fairly early on in the 100-minute contest, though. But yeah, pretty cool. The IMSA represented well amongst the Trans Am ranks.
Well, if you wanted somebody to jump in a car at short notice on a circuit they hadn't seen before, that was a cross between the world's fastest bridge crossing and a street race, you would obviously come to the IMSA paddock, Shea, wouldn't you?
And obviously you would call up Joey Hand. He's crazy like that.
Of course he is. Yeah, of course I will. What did you say it was? Yeah, because he would have said yes before he even knew. Would you like to drive? And the answer would have been yes at that point. In fact, would you like to the answer would have been yes before they'd actually said anything else. We're off and running. 14 minutes, we're on the clock. It's LMP3, Le Mans Prototype 3 qualifying. These have been a great addition. These cars have been a great addition to the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. Big, throaty, rumbling V8s. All the cars here are Ligiers, although it is an open chassis formula. That there are a number of chassis manufacturers who make these cars, but unlike, Jeremy, the Prototype Challenge, where we do have a couple of different manufacturers, it's only Ligiers in the 7 that have come to the big show.
Indeed, so we've seen a couple of Duquesnes have taken part in races early in the season, but not lately, unfortunately. So you're right, it's all Ligiers, and so it's just out of the drivers, isn't it? It makes things very, very interesting indeed, and certainly all these drivers are looking forward with some trepidation, no doubt about it, for this qualifying session, because the conditions out there right now are pretty treacherous. The last thing you want to do is make a mistake and find something solid in this qualifying session with the race tomorrow afternoon.
I think I might have waited a moment or two before I went out with 15 minutes on the clock and given everybody about half a lap to get out the way, so I wasn't having to worry about somebody diving down the inside. Find your own piece of track. There is a dry-in line through the kink. It is, shall I say, it's a less wet line, actually, Jeremy. I think it's the fairer thing to say, because there's still some spray coming up from those highly efficient Michelin rain tyres there. Where you don't want to be is anywhere off the racing surface, because that will be extremely wet on the grass. Had a bit of rain, quite a bit of rain and hailstones yesterday, if you weren't with us for our coverage of the first of 2 brilliant MX5 races. If you haven't seen them, wait for them to come up on the Mazda Racing and IMSA official channels on YouTube. 2 cracking races, but then the rest of the afternoon and early evening rather disrupted by the weather, which included some very unseasonable weather, hailstones, thunder and lightning, which brought things to a premature close yesterday for all intents and purposes. We have got all 7 cars out, and rather sensibly they are spacing out. I'm looking at my tracker at the moment here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. 3 cars fairly together on the run down through the kink in turn 4 towards turn 5. Then a big gap back to the number 61 with Augie Paps behind the wheel of the Wolver Racing entry. And he's got the 91 Jim Cox and the Riley Motorsports car behind him. Then a big gap just coming around turn 3 now. John Bennett for Core Autosport, and still on the front straight at the moment is the Junior 3 racing car. That is the number 30 of Terry Olsen. Just going through turn 1 now in that very distinctive and I think very smart livery of the mainly white car with the blue stripes around it, the 2 or 3 tones of blue, and then that bright orange. Is that the livery they've been running in the Prototype Challenge, Jeremy?
Yes, it is. Over the last couple of years, it's generally the Palmers, father and son, Greg and Eric, who run that car. Unfortunately, due to some family medical issues, they haven't been at the last few races in the IMSA Prototype Challenge Series. They're from local here to Road America, so I don't know whether the Palmers are here watching. If you are, guys, and the whole family, best wishes to you all, and we hope to see you back at the wheel of this car before too long. But in the meantime, as you say, for Junior 3 racing, it's Terry Austin, and for tomorrow at least, Mike Skeen will be sharing that car. That team, a very ambitious team and a very accomplished team as well. Billy Glavin is the principal there, and spent a lot of time with Hendrick Motorsports in NASCAR ranks, so knows his way around racetracks. They do a lot of vintage car preparation as well, which is how they got to know Terry Olsen. And Terry's also been driving this season in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series as well. Had a lot of success, actually. He had 4 LB Cup wins in succession prior to the earlier today, where he and Mark Kawami had some difficulties. But certainly for Terry Olsen, loving driving these cars, and this is his IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship racing debut, and for the team this weekend.
Good news for Mike Skeen, Jeremy, is there is a warm-up session for WeatherTech SportsCar Championship on Sunday. Don't always have them, and it's for those in Europe, it's something, watching and listening in Europe at the moment at what are we, 10:15 in Central European summertime, so 9:15, 15 minutes before 9 in the UK. It's something of an oddity to have a warm-up session now before a main race, but there is one tomorrow, so that's good news for Mike. He'll be able to get out and at least, Jeremy, get a few laps.
Yeah, these cars sliding around up the top of the hills, slicks and down through Hurry Downs here. And Dan Goldberg, that's a great lap by him, a 2:21.102, actually splitting the 2 Corvettes of Jordan Taylor and Nick Tandy. They were out just a little while ago, so a great lap by him. Jared Andretti, who is chasing the number 38 car on the road here for Andretti Motorsports, the car number 36. He's only a half a second behind Goldberg as well. He seems to be a little bit closer this time around. So those 2 are the fastest cars on track at the moment. Oh, Jarrett's lifted off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's letting Jim Cox go through in the Riley Motorsports. Gar Robinson go through in the Riley Motorsports number 74, and just keeping out the way for a moment or two. It is. I mean, these cars are very, very highly engineered in terms of their aerodynamic performance. So they are a downforce car. And you get into a downforce car in the wet, and the guy who's strapping you in, or your race engineer, will tell you, don't worry, you just have to go fast enough to get the downforce to work. It will stick. Yeah, that's all right for him to say. You have to have that mindset that you just go, yeah, all right. And when you get to that, there is a eureka moment where the tyres are working, the suspension's working, and the aerodynamic downforce is pushing the car down on the road with the force of a small family sedan. And then all of a sudden, in conditions like this, the car really does start to come alive. Also, you're moving a lot of water as well. The problem comes if you're not very confident, and these cars don't have, Jeremy, an awful lot of mechanical grip as a GT car would. So they will slide around until you get to that critical speed where the downforce, the aerodynamics of the car actually get triggered.
Fair comment. And for the drivers who are making their debut this weekend, that's a pretty daunting task out there. For someone like Augie Paps, for example, he did actually drive here at Road America last weekend in a Formula Atlantic car. I just did one of the 2 races. Actually, he's supposed to drive a car all weekend, but they had an engine failure in the practice, so he hopped aboard his the guy who drives for him in the USF 2000 Championship, part of the Road to Indy, Yuvan Sundaramurthy. He hopped into Yuvan's car on the Sunday and got some seat time around here. Other than that, Augie Pap's last race was 2008 at the Spa 6 Hours, a historic race there, driving a Ford GT40. How cool was that? So Augie, this is a pretty steep learning curve for him. And that car, of course, had an off this morning. Tony Skazimetz, most uncharacteristically, had an off at Canada Corner on the exit and buried the car into the tyre wall there. So they had to repair that car for this session. I think Augie is now out on the track. He was, I think he did an out and an in because you're not allowed to touch the car.
He's just gone out again.
Yeah, he's gone out again. Okay, cool. So he hasn't not yet turned a fully representative lap in car number 61.
22 seconds to make this a substantive session, to make that 10 minutes. At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch with us on Twitter, got the screen up here in the Hackney Global Broadcast Centre, where I'm joined by Jeremy Shaw. Shea Adam is getting us the information from the pit and paddock as our VP Racing Fuel reporter. Sorry, Jeremy, I cut you off there for a moment. What were you going to say?
Great. That's Dan Goldberg just complete another lap in that number 70, or excuse me, that's Gar Robinson turning another lap in the 74 car. He did improve on that last lap, but remains third at 2:21.9. Dan Goldberg improved on that last lap as well to be faster than Jordan Taylor's GTLM car. 2 minutes 20.6 then for Dan Goldberg. Leads the way at the moment. Jared Andretti, having lifted off on the last lap, also improved this time around, but a 2:21.2 for Jared Andretti. So still 6/10 behind Dan Goldberg. Just a similar margin ahead of Gar Robinson. John Bennett in 4th position in car number 54, and Terry Olsen 5th in car number 30.
Yeah, the top 3 cars are actually within sight of each other on the track, as the number 38 Dan Goldberg just heads in to the carousel now. The 74 in 3rd position, Gar Robinson for Riley Motorsports, is just coming through turn 8, and about 10 car lengths, maybe a little more behind him, is the 2nd place car, the Andretti Autosport Jared Andretti car. So Jared let Gar Robinson go through. Now, whether he's using him as a bit of a marker or not, I'm not sure, but it's a very bright coloured car, so if there is one that you're going to pick to follow in the gloom, Jeremy, that's probably one of the better ones, the number 74 with its bright orange and blue livery.
Fair comment. And Jared Andretti, he's just got purple in the first sector, fractionally quicker than Gar Robinson. 16.8 is the sector time for both of those two. They've got nearly a couple of tenths on Dan Goldberg, so it's Dan who really was much quicker in the middle sector, which is the longest sector here. That goes from basically just before turn 3, I think, all the way down to after, or just before Canada Corner. So that's the longest stint on this racetrack, 1 minute 20 seconds, 1:20.1 for Dan Goldberg, who improves again.
Yeah,
wow.
2:19.6 now on that last lap. It is drying. The wiper is still on from most of the cars out there, but the number 38 car through turn 1 and down towards turn 3, through goes Gar Robinson. This is qualifying for LMP3 position and points. 2.5 minutes still to go. Then Andretti goes through, doesn't improve this time. Robinson did improve to a 2:20.0, half a second between first and second, another 1 second further back for Jared Andretti in 3rd. This is good driving by all 3 of those top 3 drivers. They are building themselves up here, Jeremy. I'm impressed with what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, very much so. And I think Jarrett must have made a mistake perhaps on that final sector on that last lap, because he was looking good up until then. But he's still got probably just this lap actually. I don't think he'll have time for one more after this, Jared Andretti. Or he perhaps just moved himself up into the 5th position ahead of Jim Cox and Terry Olsen. So that's a good effort by Augie. But John Bennett, he's right up behind Jim Cox, isn't he? So he's going to have to get past Jim if he's going to improve. At the moment, he's only half a second behind Jared Andretti is John Bennett at the moment. He's going to have to make a pass on the racetrack in order to, I think, extract an improvement this time around.
If I'm going to talk, I really need to turn my microphone on, don't I? 63 seconds to go. Sorry, I'm engrossed in what I'm seeing here with these times coming down. So Goldberg down to a 2:19.6. And this looks like it could be the last lap. He's starting to search for a little bit of wet on the tyres. He comes to Canada corner. He was way offline to the right-hand side before he cut back on the racing line, which is driver's left for Canada corner. And Gar Robinson just coming out of the final corner, and Goldberg goes through in the 38 to take a 2:19.457. So he will get, oh sorry, that's good, that's Robinson. 2:19.457. Robinson's gone through and gone on to pole position. Goldberg does a 2:19.5. It's down to 0.086 of a second, Jeremy, and these two have got one more lap. They've both got through.
Really good effort there by Gar Robinson. I think Jared Andretti did get across the line as well. He did improve on that last lap, a 1:21.1, but he's still got a second and a half to make up to catch those two at the front. Gar Robinson leads by less than a tenth of a second over Dan Goldberg in second place. A super battle between those two. I think Robinson he was just heading into turn 5, and Dan Goldberg is on a hurry down section now through turn 8 at the moment. He has Gar Robinson did improve again in sector 1 on this lap. Purple in sector 1 for Gar Robinson in car number 74.
This has been magnificent stuff. Oh, spin for the Jared Andretti Autosport number 36. Now he's got the car off the track. He's at the exit of turn 5, I think, running up towards the Chevrolet bridge. Yeah, that is exactly where he is. Just got too wide on the exit curbs there. Is there a little more rain starting to fall? Everybody looking to cool down their wet weather Michelin tyres by finding a little bit of damp patches. Here comes the second place car now to Canada corner, the number 38 Performance Tech Motorsport, the red LMP3 car with the black low lights on it. I nearly said highlights there. One corner to go, starting to rain again. We're hearing from track side. Gar Robinson yet to see the checkered flag. He's not that far up the road. Nice slide out the final corner by Dan Goldberg. The Riley Motorsports number 74 still out on the circuit. Here comes Goldberg, goes through and goes to provisional pole position. 2:19.1 by 0.3 of a second. Now where is Gar Robinson?
Right behind him.
Here he comes to the line now. This is the last chance saloon. John Andretti, we know, is not going to improve. Robinson improves, gets down to a 2:19, but a 2:19.4. 0.3 of a second. What a qualifying session in really tricky conditions. Challenging for all of these drivers, Jeremy Shaw, and they've all performed exceptionally well. None better than Dan Goldberg, who set the early pace, then had to come again right at the end.
Seriously impressive there for Dan Goldberg. His first pole position, it was that middle sector, the longest sector on this track, that he really put it all together. He was a half a second quicker than Gar Robinson. Robinson was purple in sector 1, but Goldberg purple fastest of all in sectors 2 and 3. That's a really, really good effort by Dan Goldberg, and he's going to be delighted with that, and rightfully so, because for the driver from Delray Beach in Florida, his first pole position, his teammate Rasmus Lind put the car on pole position earlier in the season for this Performance Tech Motorsports team. That was at Sebring in round 2, but this is the first pole for Dan Goldberg, and very, very hard earned.
Brilliant stuff from all concerned. I think we only saw maybe half a spin. I'm not even going to call Jared Andretti. I knew I'd do that. Jared Andretti's little off a full spin. So he managed to get it back on the track really quickly. And frankly, in those conditions, they were exceptionally challenging. Really, really good. Jared just coming down into turn 5, actually just ran a little bit long. Then as he went over the curb, just lost the back end exactly as I thought he would do. Yeah, it's just over 180 degrees, let's call it 200 degrees, but no harm, no foul there. And absolutely no disgrace in those conditions, Jeremy, with it wet, drying, and then raining again at the end when the tyres were probably, in terms of their wet weather grip, somewhat past their optimum, to be quite honest. I thought that was spectacular. Really was spectacular from all of those drivers.
Yeah, hats off there, Dan Goldberg. He'll be absolutely thrilled with that. He's had a kind of an up and down season, made a few mistakes in the races, but he's made no mistakes in this qualifying session. He's going to start from the pole position and a clean run tomorrow. Rasmus Lind, his co-driver, he's had a lot of success here in qualifying in the past. For both races in 2018 here in USF 2000, he started from the pole position. The following year, one of the two races in Indy Pro 2000, the next step on the road to Indy, he also qualified on the pole position, but he didn't manage to win either race. He's not the guy who qualified the cars today. That was Dan Goldberg, but those will be looking to combine and score the win tomorrow for Performance Tech Motorsports.
That is going to be, Shea Adam, one happy team for Performance Tech Motorsport.
Yeah, that was just Brent O'Neill up on the wall clapping his driver down the pit lane. They're a small family team based out of South Florida, and they go up against the big dogs. They take everybody on. They've won the PC championship in the past. They've won all the big races, almost, except for Petit Le Mans, but Daytona, Sebring, Watkins Glen. Road America is a special track for them, though. It is one that one of their drivers, longtime drivers, James French, calls home. So they've always wanted to go well here. And for Dan Goldberg, the process of development just took another step today as this club racer who got his starts driving BMWs that he worked on himself now has a pole position in IMSA.
Yeah, well earned. That is pole points and pole position. So that is an earned pole position. Still to come here on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV, live in sound and vision, free, unblocked, and without interruption. We have the battle for pole position, and the weather is closing in again. The umbrellas have gone back up on the pit lane, and the rain is falling just a little bit harder again now. This is what I would call ploppy rain. I'm kind of like to be descriptive with my raindrops. It's not misty rain, it's ploppy rain, this. And it is...
It's not mosquito rain.
It's not mosquito... Oh, I like mosquito rain, Shea. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Like that.
The little drops that just annoy you.
Yeah. that you sort of almost want to bat away. Yeah, I know that, yes. Yeah. No, this is proper big ploppy rain right now. So this is going to be a tough one as well. Shea, what do you know about who's qualifying? We have DPI, who we should see on pole position here, but also got a quartet of LMP2 cars. Who's qualifying as far as you know?
For the LMP2 cars, there is no choice. You must qualify your bronze driver. So it's John Ferrano for Tower Motorsport in the number 8. Dwight Merriman in the number 18 for Era Motorsport, sharing this weekend with Ryan Dial. Welcome back, Razzle Dazzle. And Ben Keating in the championship leading 52 for PR1 Matheson Motorsport. His biggest contender, you've got to expect, is going to be Stephen Thomas in the number 11. Those two have given us such entertainment this year, going back and forth trying to claim the pole position. And by the way, I noticed on the Road to Le Mans entry list, Stephen Thomas and Tristan Nunez will be sharing an LMP3 machine over there. So that's a little bit exciting for our full season championship contenders. In the DPI category, things get a little bit more tricky to try and figure out who's going to be in the cars because they do have an open selection. I noticed the helmet of Ollie Jarvis in the Mazda, the pink, yellow, and slightly black helmet. And Sam Back, a guy who knows how to get pole position here, has done it several times before, still looking for the race win for Dad's team, but got the race win last year. That's the one and only Ricky Taylor in the number 10 machine. For Whalen Engineering, there's a little bit of red and white on that helmet. Unfortunately, red and white adorns the helmets of both Felipe Nasser and Pipo Durrani. Let's see, I think that's Nasser. Trying to get a look through the side window. I think that's Nasser. I'm going to bet that it's Felipe Nasser going out for qualifying. I'll let you know the other 3 cars as soon as I find them out, John.
Thank you, Shea. Shea Adam giving us all of the details there. Who'd be a racing driver? Just always changing conditions. Fancy having to try and work out where you were. New driver, jump in and drive. Just as difficult for the tyre technicians and the engineers down there in the pit lane. So, Jeremy, a little while since we've seen the DPIs as well. Where do we stand in the championship for the prototype classes? Jeremy?
A pretty good lead coming into this weekend, 81 points that Ricky Taylor and Philip Albuquerque have in hand over Oliver Jarvis and Harry Tinknell. A goodly portion of that came last time out when the Mazda finished in the 5th position and the Wayne Taylor Acura finished in 3rd. But yeah, coming into this weekend, certainly just interesting to see that Felipe Nasr at the wheel of number 31 car, because it's generally Pipo Derani that qualifies that number 31 car. So that's interesting to see that change. But I think in these conditions, it's really whoever feels most comfortable, because these are all pro lineups. And you want to give yourself the best chance to win the race. So whoever's most comfortable, it's difficult to pass in these cars because they're so closely matched. So track position is important, even though it's a 2 hours and 40-minute race. And if you can start up front, the better, then do it. And I think whoever feels most comfortable in these sort of conditions in each of the driver lineups, go for it.
Yeah. You want to volunteer at this point. It's a bit like a penalty shootout in soccer, isn't it? You don't want to press gang someone into this year. You want somebody to step up and say, "Oh yes, boss, give it to me. I want to go. I want to go now."
May I just say, oh, Canada.
Yes, well done.
After mentioning penalty shootouts. Yeah, it's very much a situation where you don't want to press a driver into driving in mixed conditions where it's potentially going to get even more wet, and you're going to send them out on slicks, or you're going to send them out on wet weather tires, but it's not quite wet enough. This is very much a, do you want to do it? Yeah. Well, do you want to do it? Yeah, I want to do it. A lot of discussion between the two drivers, I would imagine.
Right, who did we not get then in your rundown?
Kevin Magnussen is in the 01 Cadillac Chip Ganassi racing machine. Tristan Vautier is in the number 5 Cadillac. That is the Mustang sampling one. And it is Olivier Pla for Meyer Shank Racing in the pink and black Acura.
Okay. Felipe Nasr, I think we mentioned in the Whelen Engineering car, he's out as well. All of those cars out on the track for the 15-minute sessions with the 4 LMP2s in there as well. A little bit more spray, I would say, now than there was before, so that rain, as it's been falling, has just undone all the good work of the Michelin wet weather tyres from the previous sessions, where we were getting a drying line, or a less wet line as I described it. So first to come across the line, I think, will be the number 10, Konica Minolta. Yes, it is, the Acura. Now, this could be fun, Jeremy Shaw. What do we like? Just add water for a bit of excitement. Yes, please.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah, the drivers they've got their work cut out here. This is going to be a really interesting session, I think, ahead of these guys. Kevin Magnussen, he's driving that car for Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing. Of course, this is a track in which he has, definitely more experience than any other track on the schedule, because he made his IndyCar debut here at Road America back in June. So, subbing for the injured Felix Rosenquist at Aaron McLaren SP, wasn't it? Yes. So he's got a good experience around this racetrack now, and he's always confident in any case, Kevin Magnussen. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do, I think, in this 01 car as a spin for Ollie Pla at the exit of turn 3.
Not very many times you say that either. Olivier Pla.
Struggled this year.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. He's not been his usual self. Factory driver for Orica. For obviously that is the chassis underneath the Acura bodywork on that car. Has to be built on a current LMP2 chassis, and he's looking. It looks to me as though he's trying to find some grip. And again, he's plagued with a car there that doesn't want to turn in. So Magnussen, Vautier, Ferrano, Taylor, all out there at the moment, and no representative times put in yet. We not going to see the qualifying record troubled here, Jeremy, by any stretch of the imagination, but just for the sake of probity and something to compare it against, what is the quali record here, and what times were we doing earlier on?
Quali time 148.715. Last year's pole position was a 49.0. Race lap record, however, a 151.0. So it's Dane Cameron who is the benchmark man here. He had the pole record and the fastest lap record. He did the pole in 2019, the fastest race lap last year. This morning, the best time we've seen in practice, which was this morning, because yesterday's session was abbreviated and wet, was a 149.7. That was by Ricky Taylor in kind of 10.
Right. Well, I would say you're going to add a good 20 seconds onto those quick times, possibly even a little bit more. And at the moment, well, do you know what? They're already at the front of the field, already under 2 minutes 10. Magnussen the quickest from Taylor.
Yeah.
2:09.7. Magnussen being a good Scandinavian, of course, doesn't mind the car moving around. This is the 01 chalk-coloured Cadillac we're talking about, which is at the moment just coming through turn 7, through Harry Downs towards the bottom of the hill. Little spin for the number 52 of Ben Keating. He is in provisional pole at the moment for PR1 Matheson Motorsport. And Shea Adam, he scored his first pole here a few years ago under somewhat similar conditions.
The weather wasn't great for GTD qualifying. I seem to remember Ben Keating going out in a Mercedes and taking pole position. And then when we were doing the interview, we went into a stage 3 lockdown for the lightning that was in the area.
I remember that.
Yeah, Ben Keating very familiar with what Road America is like in less than ideal conditions and how to go quickly despite them.
Seem to remember you being in the scrutineering shed.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
Along with everybody else from the pit lane. So even though we weren't outside, we did manage to get a few interviews at that point. Yes, I do remember that now. It is quite a large scrutineering, undercover scrutineering area. Jeremy and I were fine over in our Global Broadcast Centre by the start-finish line. Thank you very much. It was a bit chilly, actually, in there. We had to put an extra layer of clothing on and then go and get a cup of coffee from the good coffee from the press room here, always. And cheese. Always cheese here as well. Cheese. Yes, we know.
I've actually convinced a spy to bring me back some cheese, so I'm quite lucky.
Oh, very good indeed. Coming down to half distance then, just under 8 minutes. Felipe Nasser now at the top for Cadillac. It's Cadillac, Acura, Cadillac, Mazda, Cadillac. Ben Keating still top of the pops as far as LMP2 is concerned, and the Mershank Racing Kerbacher journey. What have they done? Have they done something very different? Because Ollie Pla's only done a couple of laps. He is out there at the moment, but he's miles off the pace. They haven't put him out on slicks, have they? Because he is massively struggling, Jeremy.
True. Good point. There he goes now. 2 minutes. That's better. 2 minutes 10.5
right, okay.
on this next lap.
So
yeah, he had that spin on the previous lap, of course, didn't he? So
yes, of course.
That wasn't represented, but Ricky Taylor was briefly in P1 there this last time around. He was purple in sector 1. He turned a 208.6. And then, as you say, Felipe Nasser went purple in this middle sector and went to a 208.1. Nobody seems to be. Oh, they are. They've gone a little bit quicker now in sector 1. And they're still on sector 2, so this is going to be really, really interesting. K-Mag is in third place. Oliver Jarvis fourth then, but a couple of seconds away from Felipe Nasser's benchmark time at the moment.
Yeah.
Pretty wet coming down there. It's counter corner, isn't it? Wow.
Yes, it is, and they are going offline there just to keep the wets wet.
Purple for Nasser.
Yeah, I'm not surprised there, Jeremy, because he was really hanging it out. Actually got the left-hand side Michelin's on the white line on driver's left as he was braking into Canada corner. Now, whether he did that on purpose or not, I'm not sure, but it really did help the car rotate into Canada corner. So maybe negating a little bit of that understeer, of that push that we were talking about earlier on. These guys might have just had enough time during the other sessions, Jeremy, just to slacken a few suspension settings off, so they may be on something a little closer to wet weather or intermediate weather settings.
little bit more downforce as well, conceivably, certainly amongst those two. There was no improvement there for Ricky Taylor, but there was for Felipe Nasr, who's now turned a 207.919. So that was a good lap by Nasr, but now he's right up behind Ricky Taylor, so you're going to be finding it difficult to improve from there. Oliver Jarvis comes across the line. That was a slow lap by Oliver. It was 5 seconds off the pace in the middle sector, not much quicker than the third one either. So I think he most likely made a bit of a mistake somewhere halfway around that lap, but he's got plenty of time now still to go for an improvement, currently in 4th place in the Mazda car number 55.
Across the line, Ollie Pla, does he improve again? He does not. His best of 2:10.5 is less than, well, 0.003 of a second away from Tristan Vautier in the Mustang sampling Cadillac. Those two about 3/10 away from Ollie Jarvis in 4th, who's a second away from K-Mag, the very special K, in 3rd position in the 01 Chip Ganassi racing car. He's half a second or so away from Ricky Taylor, who's 3/4 of a second away from Felipe Nasr on provisional pole position, as we are qualifying for position and points at the front of the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. Ben Keating still holds provisional pole with the 52 PR1 Matheson Motorsport Orica for LMP2, ahead of the number 11 Win Autosport car, with Stephen Thomas behind the wheel of that car. John Ferrano for Tower Motorsport is a little bit further back. Dwight Merriman for ERA getting up the pace as well, but those two continually improving as they find their confidence in the conditions and in their car. 4 minutes to go. This is a live session. We have had more than 10 minutes of green flag racing, so whatever happens now, these times will count. And there was a bit of jiggery-pokery, and just as I say these times will count, off goes the bright blue LMP2, and that is the 18 car of Dwight Merriman, carrying the colours of EDEC and ERA Motorsport. And he's gone, I think he's gone right through the gravel, so he might, if he gets reverse, he's at turn 3 at the bottom of the hill, he might actually be able to get that car away and pull it away. I'm guessing, oh, he lost that even as he went to the brakes, and it pitched nastily left rather than right, but skids across the gravel. He finds reverse, and I think he'd be able to get that car off the grass if he can get a little bit of momentum going. He has done. Well done, sir. Well done, Mr. Merriman. And a spin at turn 5 for Felipe Nasr, the provisional pole sitter at the moment. His last lap at 2:15. So is it getting wetter out there? I think it is. There's the 11 off as well. Oh, that's Stephen Thomas for win, and that is contact. That's coming out of the final corner. Left rear contacting the wall after he went in after a full 360. I think he's got some steering damage as well. Oh, and now Pla's off as well. Oh my goodness me, it must be getting wetter out there. Oh, there's something on the track. Everybody is losing control. This is going to be the end of the session. Ben Keating goes quicker, and does he? Yes, he does. Ben Keating handling the conditions better than so many of the others with more experience out there. Keating goes quicker again to cement his position at the top of LMP2. 2:18.5. Well done, Ben. Very close moment for Kevin Magnussen, who had to go off track at turn 5 to avoid the spinning Felipe Nasr, who lost it coming down into turn 5. I think he just got his right rear Michelin on the curb as he went in, and Magnussen having to go the long way around, Jeremy, and go around the outside completely off the track. And then the next incident was the blue ERA EDEC car, and that's just on the curb as well. It's the curbs. The curbs have got wetter, Jeremy. They were using them earlier on. They can't use them now.
That's exactly right. And for Felipe Nasr, he'd just overtaken Ricky Taylor going into turn 5, just carried a bit too much speed in, but Ollie Pla's really struggling. That was a big slide he had under braking there for turn 3. Then he goes off the road and makes contact with the barrier. But moments before that, Oliver Jarvis had improved his time up to 3rd place in number 55 Mazda, ahead of Kevin Magnussen. So that was just moments before all those incidents took place, and this came back off the road as well.
Turn 3
it's
as well.
It's getting slippery now.
No,
yeah, it's getting worse now.
I tell you what it is, where Dwight Merriman went off, he put a lot of dirt right on the braking and turning point. And I did see Ollie Pla run over that, and the car was pitched sideways. And I think K-Mag's done exactly the same thing at the same spot. And there was a big piece of mud on the circuit. And let's see if K-Mag does about the same thing. Yes, he does. He maybe just understeered a little more. But he at least didn't swap ends and didn't make contact with anything. Be a bit of grass and clarts, as I would say, from the northeast, a bit of clag, as Mr. Hobbs would say, to be dragged out of that car. 11 seconds left. I can't see anybody improving. So for me, it'll be NASA and Whelen Engineering on pole position from Ricky Taylor's time in the Acura. 3/4 of a second. Checkered flag is out. But Ben Keating, Jeremy Shaw, in the worst of that, when there were 3 cars spinning off, improved his time at the top of LMP2. So difficult conditions, yes, but attack with, I suppose, a little bit of care, and there were improvements out there. Brilliant from Keating.
Certainly was. It was a fine effort by Ben Keating, wasn't it? This will be his 4th pole position in total, and a very, very well earned one indeed for Ben Keating. Also a great effort there by Felipe Nasser there. That was really some class driving for Felipe. His first pole position of the year, to go along with the one he had a year or 2 ago. So he'll be thrilled with that. That was a great effort by the number 31 driver, Whelen Engineering Action Express team. They've had a good string of results coming into this weekend. They're currently lying 3rd in the points, but only just over 100, which is not that much behind the overall leaders coming this weekend, having won the most recent race last month at Watkins Glen. So it's been a good streak for this number 31 team, and an excellent effort to get the pole position by the Brazilian Felipe Nasser.
Just having a quick look at the king of the screen grab. Alan Prosser has tweeted me a screen grab. Yeah, left rear tyres running right over the dirt for Pla. And I wonder if that's what started off the slide as well for Magnussen. They're back in the pit lane. So we have our pole sitters in the prototype classes. Ben Keating will start on pole position for PR1 Matheson Motorsport. Win Autosport, Stephen Thomas on the outside of the first row. Then it's John Ferrano for Tower and Dwight Merriman for Aero Motorsports. Felipe Nasser for Whelen, the red and white number 31 Cadillac out front, and will lead the cars to green tomorrow afternoon. You can hear it live on XM202 in the States. If you're further afield, you can get us on IMSA Radio RS2 via imsaradio.com. 87.9 FM and 454 even, of course, here at the track. Ricky Taylor on the outside pole for the 10 Conningham and Alta Acura. Then Mazda, second row inside, P3 for the number 55 Mazda DPI. Well done, Ollie Jarvis, just pipping by about half a second Kevin Magnussen for Chip Ganassi Racing and their Cadillac 01 in 4th. And it's the 2 Frenchmen, Tristan Vautier and Ollie Pla, 5 and 60 the next row back. All subject to post-race scrutineering in the big shed, of which we spoke earlier, which is where they are headed. Now, final thoughts from you, Jeremy Shaw. What's been a fascinating session. Only the GTDs really getting anything like a dry session, and plenty of challenges for the teams, and particularly the drivers who were out there qualifying.
Yeah, lots of fun, wasn't it, to watch? I'm not sure how much fun it was to drive. I think certainly for the pole sitters, it was particularly fun to drive. And Ben Keating, by the way, Ben Keating's time, it was a half a second quicker than the LMP3 pole position. So again, hats off to Dan Goldberg. That was a really fine effort for him to get the pole in LMP3 for Performance Tech. But again, Felipe Nasser, very much the star of this qualifying session. A great pole position in that number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac.
You'll hear from all of our pole sitters in our Michelin Countdown to Green tomorrow. Shea Adam, our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter, will be talking to them to get their thoughts, and you'll hear them, as I say, in the show tomorrow. Jeremy Shaw joined me, John Hindhaugh, in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Big thanks to everybody out on the circuit, IMSA officials, marshals, all of our volunteers, and particularly our camera operators out there in the weather. That was qualifying for IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. The grid is set for the main event of the IMSA SportsCar Weekend here at Road America, and we'll have it live for you tomorrow. Also, a bit of warm-up action for you as well. Check IMSARadio.com for all of our live on-air times. See you then. Bye-bye.